We are with planning a trip along the GDT, which is going to be our first webinar of the pre-trail hiking series for 2025. I think it's important to know when you're on the Great Divide Trail, what land you're passing through. So here's the land acknowledgement from the Great Divide Trail Association. The GDTA is committed to reconciliation, which starts by taking this and every opportunity to acknowledge our honor and privilege to live, work, and play within the Treaty 7 territory. We honor and acknowledge that the GDTA passes through traditional indigenous territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Stoney Nakoda, Tsuut'ina, Cree, Secwepemc, Lheidli T'enneh, Sinixt, and Métis Nations. And the GDTA would like to invite you to advocate for what you love and to preserve nature for future generations to enjoy, while educating yourselves and others on Indigenous history and perspectives. So a bit about us. My name's Austin. I hiked the GDT in 2021 and blogged for the trek that year. That fall, I joined the board of directors, and last year I became vice president of the GDTA. I'm the chair of outreach, and this summer I will be hiking the PCT.
And I'm Meg, so I'm the Outreach Vice Chair for the GDTA. Currently living in the East Kootenays in BC. I've been hiking and backpacking since I was 13, and I did the GDT in 2023 with my husband.
Awesome. So here's a bit about the Great Divide Trail Association, who's bringing you this meeting right now. We are an entirely volunteer-based organization, except for one person who's our executive director named Kate Hamilton. We're not-for-profit, and every summer we manage hundreds of kilometers of trail building, trail maintenance, and advocating on behalf of Canada's longest trail. The GDTA is not nationally protected or recognized across all governing bodies, so this is a huge thing that we're working on to make sure that the GDTA can be protected for future, and that we can have endorsement across all governing bodies in Canada. This would also coincide with potentially having a through hiker permit, which is something we're still continually working on very hard. So how can you help us? The number one way to help the GDTA and the future of the Great Divide Trail is through membership. Membership helps us in every aspect of what we do as an organization. When we go to governing bodies and say, hey, we really want to protect this section of trail. We really want a through hiker permit. When we're applying for grants for funding, if we have all these people behind us supporting us, we can say, we have this many members and they all believe in this. They all want this. It's the best way to show that we are representing people that enjoy hiking and want to hike through the Canadian Rockies. Another great way to help is through volunteering. This can be through trail building. It can be through a variety of the committees that we have. From outreach committee to help governing the GDTA to fundraising. There's a ton of different ways you can help volunteer, and we're always looking for people to help out. Thirdly is donating. We don't get kind of funding the same way trails in the US do, where they get federal funding through the National Scenic Trails Act. We rely on grants, revenue through membership, donations, and a little bit of merch sales. And lastly, the kind of best way you can help is use permits appropriately. When people kind of misuse permits, don't get permits, and then they have a confrontation with Parks Canada or any other governing body, it really reflects poorly on us as an organization, and it really does not help us go to seek the goals that we're trying to get, which is national recognition, protection. And so here we are presenting information to help you make kind of the most educated decision on how to plan out a trip and kind of how to make it work for you and with the system we have to operate within. There are a ton of perks in being a GDTA member. If you're doing a through hike, the membership fee totally pays itself off. Or if you're in the market for any kind of major purchase for hiking this season. A couple of the big kind of items we have for membership benefits are discounts at Gear Trade, which is a shop in Okotoks that is kind of like the go-to spot for ultralight and lightweight camping gear in Canada. Also, Durston Gear. Dan Durston is a humongous supporter of the GDTA. He offers a discount for members on all of his tents and backpacks. And a lot of other kind of logistical things within hiking a Great Divide Trail through hike totally pay themselves off, from a discount at the Jasper Downtown Hostel, resupplying in Peter Lougheed. Also, we have a discount for those flying in if you're looking to, or if you live in Calgary. if you're trying to get from Calgary to Waterton, there's a discount on that shuttle too, and a discount on resupplying in Section G if you're looking to do that. So here's a bit of information on kind of what we do as an organization each year to help hikers out. So every December, we update the Far Out app. If you're not familiar, I cannot suggest enough to get the Far Out app. It's the most up-to-date app that is around for the GDT. It's also the kind of go-to app for all longer hikes out there. Each year, we send them an updated kind of GPX file to say this is the most up-to-date kind of route along the trail. We update campgrounds, we add waypoints, we delete waypoints, we update descriptions, and all of this information is going to line up exactly with the itineraries and campgrounds page that we have on the GDTA website around planning a hike. These itineraries, we kind of alter them each year. We take into account elevation gain, distance, terrain, and the speed in which hikers like to go. There's 3 speeds on the itineraries page: relax, average, and fast. I highly suggest anybody looking to do a section or more to kind of base off of these itineraries, because it does a great job of kind of taking out the mystery on, well, how far can I go this day? It's without, just grinding over maps. It kind of gives you a pretty informed decision right away. And then this corresponds with the campgrounds page. We also have a spreadsheet with a list of every campground on the GDT. It's updated each year. We talk about what amenities are available at each campground, and all this data works directly with the Far Out app. Last year, there were a few people that tried to use Gaia and CalTopo, and they didn't necessarily import their own data. There have been a lot of apps that have put the GDTA on their map, but they're not updated frequently, and we did not give them this data. So it's I would not say it's very reliable. The GPX data is available on our website, but if you just want an app right away to download and it has our info, the Far Out app will have it. Another couple things we do, we confirm resupply points. So each year we check in with everybody that allows hikers to resupply or send a box there. Make sure they still want to do that. This year we have a couple more. They're all on the resupplies website, or on the resupply page of our website. And we also try to create new hiker resources, whether this is finding more options for shuttles, finding new member discounts for accommodation, and kind of all that jazz. Lastly, we work very closely with Parks Canada, BC and Alberta Parks, to talk about what we're allowed to do for trail building, how we can make sure through hikers have kind of the best chance at getting through without too many hiccups on reservations, and kind of letting them know this is what people are looking for, how can we help, and this has really, in the past couple of years, grown with us being able to do quite a bit of trail maintenance through Jasper National Park. Here's a few upcoming webinars. Next Sunday, we're going to have a members-only Q&A. This is timed so it's 1 to 3 days before the big reservations of Banff and Jasper. So in this webinar, we're really going to talk about how you can plan a trip, some tips, some distances, kind of happy to answer questions too. We found that a lot of people have a lot of very specific questions right before permit day. So next Sunday, if you remember, you'll have access to more of not so much a presentation, but more just kind of an online chat if you have any questions about those kind of final details on your trip before reservation day. A few days after that, we're going to have a women's webinar. This was very well received last year. It's featuring several thru hikers of a variety of trails, including the GDT, and they're going to talk everything about gear, hygiene, bears, everything that kind of gets brushed over in the somewhat male-dominated thru hiking world. In February, we have 3 webinars. The dates will be kind of coming out in the next week or two, hopefully. We're going to have a bear safety webinar featuring Bear Vault. We're going to have another gear webinar, which we've had every year for the past 5 years, so people can kind of ask questions on how does the GDT differ than, say, some other more popular hiking trails in more southern, warmer climates. And we're also going to have one on the Great Divide route. There's been a lot of buzz around this in the past couple of years since a few people have hiked it, and we're going to get together all the people that have, or many people that have hiked that section, and they're going to talk about what worked, what didn't, how hard it was, what's the scoop on it. So that'll be coming out probably towards the end of February. One thing we had done, I guess about 2 years now, is had a bunch of maps printed. So there's complete topo maps throughout the whole entire GDT. They are up to date. All the ones that I know that are in existence are completely up to date. We've sold a bunch. There's been some really minor changes, nothing major if you have an older one. But just to let you know, these are available. Gear Trade has them. You can get them in paper or waterproof material. And the same data is available on the GDTA website for free. Okay, jumping into a quick overview before we get into sections, just so people are all on the same page, the southern terminus of the GDTA, or of the GDT, is Waterton Lakes National Park, which is the northern terminus of the Continental Divide Trail. The northern terminus is Kakwa Lake Provincial Park, which is kind of between Jasper and Prince George area, and on average takes 50 to 55 days to complete for most through hikers. The trail is about 1,150 kilometers long. This will vary a bit depending on what alternates you might take, but it's always going to be somewhere between 1,100 and 1,200. It's broken up into 7 sections, which we're going to outline in just a minute. And most hikers are resupplying 5 or 6 times. There are a few options to resupply a handful of other times, but in general, 5 or 6 resupplies is kind of where most people are ending up. So jumping into Section A, Section A is the southernmost section of the GDT. Huge majority of through hikers are going northbound, just based on the short weather window, and the terrain lends itself a bit better to going northbound rather than southbound. So if we look at the start here, we're in Waterton Lakes National Park. Section A ends in Coleman, Alberta, which is on Highway 3, Crow's Nest Pass. The section's 145 kilometers long. There's a cumulative 7,000 meters of gain. And a couple of the main alternates in this section are the Rose Sage Pass alternate. I personally have not done this. I heard it's quite spectacular. There's very little water on this alternate. So if you are thinking about doing it, just keep in mind that if it's a super hot day, you're going to be cooking. A lot of Waterton was burned, I think, in 2017. And so a lot of this alternate, you're on a ridge and you're kind of in either full alpine or through a burnt forest. So I heard the views are spectacular, but just keep in mind that if it's really, really hot, or if you're starting a bit later in the year, like in August, for example, it might not be the best option. Barnaby Ridge is another really popular alternate. It's one of the more technical, if not the most technical alt on the Great Divide Trail. There is a bit of like a down climb scramble. If you're scrambling in the Rockies all the time, it might not be a big deal, but coming from more of the hiking world, it can be a little spicy. Just kind of finding out where to down climb. But then once you're on the ridge, it's kind of just a rolling ridge that you're on for several K. Again, not a lot of good water options up there. So if it's hot, it's not the best option. But I've heard it is quite spectacular. Also, the 2 lines I have here with Akamina Pass to Sage Paths and then south on Rose Sage Alt. I wanted to start including a bit more info on shorter sections of trail rather than jumping into 145K. I thought it'd be nice for people to get more of a taste of the GDT without, committing to maybe a week or more. So here's a couple different options, kind of in that weekend distance of 40 to 50K. So regarding permits for Section A is a lot more straightforward than many of the other sections. If you're doing any extended hike on the Great Divide Trail, you'll definitely need a Parks Canada Discovery Pass. Usually people hang these in their car. What I did is you can either put it in your backpack. It's really thin and lightweight. On my through hike, though, I just took a picture of it. And these passes are what funds search and rescue. So search and rescue is free in all national parks. And so having one of these permits is basically a good way to fund this and funding your access to the park. It's quite common for people to kind of get to Waterton and spend the night at kind of the town site campground. It's just a really large kind of front country campground right in town. The town of Waterton, which is quite small, but hundreds of sites. It's first come, first serve. It's mostly kind of a grassy field, but it's really easy if you kind of show up there in the afternoon, grab a spot, and then you can hit the trail the next morning. 4 campsites within Waterton. I have them all listed here: Boundary Bay, Bertha, Alderson, Lone Lake, Twin Lake. Most people, what they end up doing is they're camping at Waterton, and then they go down. You have to go hike southbound to hit the monument at the southern terminus, and then they hike back. And some people then just stay again at the front country site, or they go a little bit further and hike to around Alderson Lake, which is a few more kilometers down the trail. Just to give you an idea, these reservations are going live this week. In general, the Waterton sites aren't as kind of contentious and hard to get compared to the Banff, Jasper, Kootenay, Yoho, Lake Louise section. But I do think it'd be a good idea to book one on the 22nd when you kind of want to start your hike. And then, once you kind of get into section C, those reservations are in a week from now. You might be able to change the Waterton one, but in general, the Waterton sites are much easier to come by, and they're online now. A couple new things for Section A. The Castle Mountain Ski Resort, which you run into just over halfway, they're accepting resupplies now, which is nice. So you can kind of, without having to go 145K, you can go, it's probably 60-ish K, and then you can resupply there. It's somewhat new, so make sure to give them a call. Make sure somebody's in the office on the day you plan on coming by. There's also a pub kind of at the ski resort, open Friday through Sunday. They are closed on holidays, so July 1st for people coming through. They were not open in 2021, and I don't believe they were open last year. At the end of Section A, most people are resupplying at Coleman or Blairmore. There's a gear shop called Spry Outdoor. They'll let you resupply, send you a box there for free. You can pick up a new fuel can, and they have all kinds of resupply stuff. They have good selection of shoes and tents. And a lot of people I know had kind of shoe problems, and they had Ultra, Solomon, Merrill, Hoka, all the big major kind of shoe companies. And also, the Pass Brewery is in Blairmore as well. We have a GBTA beer there on tap, so make sure to swing by there and check it out. Meg, do you have anything to add for Section A?
No, I think you got Section A covered.
And yeah, if anybody has any questions at all, feel free to use the Q&A, and we'll jump in there.
I also believe, Austin, we're in presenter mode. Everyone can kind of see like how we see it.
Okay.
It sounds like that's how everyone's seeing it. So just, yeah, if you're having troubles reading things, this will be up on YouTube. But we are going to go to Section B now. So we can go to this is Window Mountain Lake, I believe, Austin, this photo. And so this is where you'll most likely spend your first night. So we can go to the next slide. And so Section B, you start in Coleman, Alberta, and you're going to end up at Peter Lougheed Provincial Park at the Kananaskis Lakes. The distance is 195 kilometers, 7,900 meters of elevation gain. And the only real alternate here is Coral Pass, which I believe we're actually going to do a clearing of this year. It's a pretty rough pass just going down into Elk Lakes right now. I had a few people who attempted to do it, and they really struggled with the bushwhack, but then I knew some people last year that trail ran just Coral Pass itself, and it was rough, but they did it. And it sounds absolutely spectacular. The one nice thing about Section B is that we now, what used to be the High Rock alternate is now the actual trail of the GDT, which was as of 2022. My husband did Section B, the old Section B, and then we did this new High Rock Trail Section B. And he said it was so much better than the original. We loved it so much. Section B was definitely one of our favorite sections to do.
Meg, give me 1 sec. I realized my screen share was on the wrong screen. That looks better.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. All right, we can go to the next slide. And so just with Section B, the nice thing is you don't actually need to book any campgrounds for Section B. So a lot of people love Section B because you can just kind of show up and do it. The only place you really need is if you're going to stay at Elk Lakes. It's $5 to stay there. You can do that online, or once you get there, it's kind of first come, first serve as well. And Section B also has limited resupply options. You kind of, if you really, it's hard to kind of go off trail on Section B to go resupply kind of halfway through. So usually it takes people kind of between, it took us about 8 days to get to the end. But it looks like you would know more about this, Austin. The Highwood House is a new resupply from when I did it.
Yeah. I only know a couple people that have been there. It's very limited. And it's kind of a detour, but so I think some people were curious just kind of what was there. In general, like you said, B is quite remote compared to many other sections, considering access. Like you're quite far from any other option, so it's kind of hard to break it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there is like section from essentially once you leave Coleman to when you start C, you're gonna have no real service. I think once we reached Aldridge Creek and kind of got out onto the road there, we had a bit of service, but not much. So you're kind of going all the way until you get to Sunshine without service for the most part. So it's, if you're doing the full thing, it's a big gap of no service. Yeah, for Section B though, you do have to get an Alberta Public Lands Camping Pass. It was about $30. You just do it online. That's what I did. And then for the end of Section B, there's a few campgrounds out there. We stayed at Bolton Creek because we could shower. Had someone meet us with our resupply because the Bolton Creek store has pretty limited resupply. They have some stuff, but not everything if you're going to do a full resupply. And we also, you can also contact Nicole Sharp. She does a resupply for people. You send your package to her and she'll do a resupply for you at the Elk Pass Trailhead. For non-members, it's about $50. And if you're a GBTA member, she does that for about $35.
Awesome. One thing I found out kind of the hard way when I took a zero at Bolton Creek is just looking on the map. We kind of stayed in an area that was first come, first serve and for just for tents. But I did not realize how far it was to the store. And so I found I was just kind of sitting at the store for like 6 hours charging all my things and like people were taking showers, we were watching stuff. So if you're with a group of people, I would highly suggest getting a powered site. It's maybe 20, $30 more, but just being able to hang out at your campsite rather than just sitting on the ground outside a store for hours while everything charges was, I would have paid a lot of money to be able to just chill in the shade at my campground or at my
Yeah,
campsite.
we didn't take a zero, but we actually did. I got it on a cancellation. We got a service one. So we actually had water and electricity at ours. So, and we were right next to the showers essentially. So
Nice.
B23 was the spot to be if you're if you're gonna go. Because yeah, it was great just to get up the next morning and head back on trail.
Mhm.
Okay,
Perfect.
and anything else for B?
Nope, not as far as not for me. I know B does have the second most elevation gain of any of the sections, so it's definitely pretty stout. Average speed is about 8 days. I think what you said, I did it in 8 as well. Fast, like 5 or 6 would be cooking. And then relaxed, you're looking more at like 10 or 11, but you're getting into a pretty big food carry at that point.
Yeah, and I just got confirmed we're actually not clearing Coral Pass. So
Oh,
if
it's
you're
not
gonna
happening?
do
Okay.
it, it's gonna be a bushwhack.
hmm Okay, moving on to section C. So section C is kind of definitely the most popular area on the Great Divide Trail. You're going to be going through Banff, Kootenay, Lake Louise, Yoho National, or not Yoho, Banff, Kootenay, Lake Louise National Parks. So you're going to be starting from Peter Lougheed Provincial Park and ending in Field, BC. It's about 200 kilometers and again about 8,000 meters gain. There are a couple alternates right off the bat, being Northover Ridge. I highly suggest if the weather is clear that everybody does Northover Ridge. It's probably my favorite spot on the whole trail except for section G. It is pretty high elevation for the Canadian Rockies. If you're coming from Colorado, Wyoming, or California, it won't be much. But 2,700 meters is kind of where you top out on Northover Ridge. It is pretty skinny, but I'd say it's not scrambling. It's just it's a steep trail, and there's a spot where you're on like a ridge, and it's only a couple feet wide. But that section's maybe only 10 or 15 feet long. With Northover Ridge, though, weather can definitely be an issue. You're above tree line for a substantial amount of the day, and there's a lot of thunderstorms in the Rockies. So make sure to choose that wisely. Also, most people find they have to add a day to their itinerary if they do Northover Ridge, just due to it's a lot of extra gain and it's a bit further distance. For people looking for a bit shorter of a trip, so this Upper Lake Trailhead, that's right out of the Bolton Creek, and then you can kind of do a loop, either just a kind of lower level loop through South Kananaskis Pass, or you can do kind of a full loop of the Northover alternate and then come back on the GBT. So if you're looking for a place to go hiking that only has a couple reservations, which are easier to find, and I think some of the best views on the whole GBT, those are a couple awesome loops. Section C also is about 8 days on an average itinerary, longer if you're going slower, and fast would be about 5 or 6 days. And all the data for these itineraries can be found on our website. So the big thing with Section C are reservations. This is usually kind of the biggest hang-up section on the whole trail. Once you have Section C booked, you're basically golden, with the exception of a couple other spots. So here is kind of an option of all the places that need to be booked on Section C. So starting out, top left, we have Peter Lougheed Provincial Park. That's where many people take a zero. That's where you can get a box delivered from Nicole Sharp, because you're pretty remote there and the store doesn't have a lot of options. Within that park, there's these sites: Bolton, Mount Sorel, Inner Lakes, Point, 4 Point, 3 Isle. These are all on kind of the main trail of the GDT. Northover has their own reservation, and then there's one spot you don't need a reservation, which can make things a bit easier. Eventually, you get into Height of the Rockies Provincial Park. There's no reservations needed through Height of the Rockies. Once you hit Banff, this is where it's going to be an event to get permits. Please do so. It's 100% manageable. It just takes either being really on it and a bit of patience, or both. So here listed are all the parks. On our campsites page on the GDT, we list all this too, with reservation dates and the itineraries line up to make a reservation. Then you move into Assiniboine. Many people choose to skip Assiniboine Park because the reservations will literally go up, disappear in like a minute or two. And Assiniboine Provincial Park is a BC park, not a national park. And so reservations are 4 months in advance rather than fixed dates like we see here with Banff, Kootenay, and Yoho. So January 27th is going to be your big permit day. If you cannot work that morning, that would be ideal. It's very likely that all the reservations for pretty much all of these sites will be gone by 1 or 2 in the afternoon on January 27th. There are a few things that you can do to find permits later, which I'll talk about in a bit. But just January 27th, really, you want to have your itinerary and your kind of plan for the summer ready, so you can start with Section C bookings and then work outwards in either direction. So I kind of listed some priorities for what reservations you should jump on first for Section C. These are the 3 kind of hot ticket items in Section C: Flow Lake, Lake Magog, and Egypt Lake or Ball Pass. Based on some information in the past couple years, I would now put Ball Pass as the #1 priority on your entire GDT hike. When you log in to make a reservation on January 27th, the first site I would book is Ball Pass. The reason being is that if you don't get Ball Pass, you're in for either a very, very long day, or it'll be such a huge gap that you would actually have to get off trail and re-navigate around. Ball Pass is kind of this junction between being in Banff and then the very popular Rockwall Trail. And so if you don't kind of get that spot, you're kind of you're kind of hooped, and you might be in for, maybe a 60K stretch, which for many people, especially in this area, it's quite steep, is longer than is feasible. These other ones, so Flow Lake and Lake Magog, there are alternates. So, if you don't get Flow Lake, that's okay. There's other spots. There's Numa Creek, there's Tumbling Creek, there's Wolverine Pass. There's other options. And in Assiniboine Provincial Park, if you don't get Lake Magog, which is kind of the high profile site, that's okay. There's Og Lake and there's Porcupine, which are a couple other sites that it's quite easy to get a booking if you try 4 months out, or if you use a strategy. I'll tell you guys a bit later. In Section C, so Section C, you can kind of break it up a bit more. You don't have to go the full like 200K all at once. Many people choose to stop in Banff, where you can resupply. There's many grocery stores. You can take kind of the shuttle or the gondola down from the ski resort and then find a shuttle into town. It's not necessarily an option where you're going to resupply and get back on trail that day. It's quite a detour. So if you are going to be resupplying in Banff, I would definitely plan on staying at least one night. One night just so you can get back on trail early in the morning, or if you're going to zero in Banff. One thing to take note, all these towns, Canmore, Banff, Jasper later on, are very, very expensive. So just take that in mind. If you're hiking on a budget, I would suggest kind of pushing through Section C without resupplying in Banff. We do have discounts for Mount Engadine Lodge, and you can resupply there as well. It's definitely more, if you're looking for more of kind of a relaxed luxury hike, Mount Engadine Lodge would be an awesome place to stay. At the end of Section C, if you are looking to save a bit of money, there's a great hostel in Lake Louise. It's about 20-minute hitch right from where you come out, but it's a Hosteling International hostel. Or an Alpine. It's Hostel International or Alpine Club of Canada hostel. I can't remember which, but it's a great hostel. There's a restaurant in the bottom. Across the street is the grocery store and the post office. So you can kind of, within like a couple blocks, you can get more food, resupply. There's gear shops. You can kind of do everything all at once. More people are finding that they're going to Golden recently just because Lake Louise is filling up. Golden's about 30 to 45 minutes away, which is a bit longer to get to, but there are also tons of options there. The Egypt Lake Campground, if you're doing a hike later in the year, it's closed every year, August 1st. So just keep that in mind. If you're finding you're unable to book it after August 1st, that's because it's permanently closed. I don't know when it reopens in the fall, but basically August forward for GDT hikers, it's not accessible. Also, one last thing I wanted to add is there's something called Rider Express. It's a bus that'll get you between Banff, Lake Louise, Field, Golden. It's a good option if you need to get to another town to find a pair of shoes or something broke, or if you're trying to maybe just do a section hike. This is a good transit opportunity. So one thing that's become popular recently is on the Rockwall Trail, which is kind of the northern end of Section C, an area where it's really hard to get reservations. There is a campsite called Wolverine. It shows up on Far Out, and it's right in the middle of the Rockwall Trail, and it's just outside of Kootenai National Park. So you'll be on the Rockwall Trail, kind of in this really nice alpine area. And if you there's a sign that says Wolverine Pass. And if you go down that trail about 1 kilometer, you just exit Kootenai National Park. And now that you're no longer in the park, you don't need a reservation. So here, last summer, I did a bit of recon on what the site looked like. On the left, here's a picture. To give you an idea, like if you're really cramming people in there, you could fit at least 6 tents. Your tents would be right on top of one another. But if you find you are not very successful with reservations for Section C from the outset, this is always an option. But just kind of 2 things I want to say. Please practice leave no trace principles when you're here. This spot is kind of, it's a bit of a loophole. It works well for GDT hikers, and as part of that, we expect GDT hikers to kind of really be practicing all the best practices of kind of leave no trace principles. Please do not ruin this for other people. It's a great little opportunity. We try not to talk about it too much, but it is certainly an option. And this the picture on the right is some water. This was late August. I expect in July there's a lot more water. But yeah, that kind of lake, you can filter water. It looks pretty good. One spot I wanted to talk about, or one issue on Section C, is if you're making permits, you're going to run into this problem sometimes where Parks Canada doesn't think you can abide by your itinerary because it's too far of a distance. And this is usually around the 30K marker, which for many thru hikers is not that far. Kind of sometimes what can happen is if you say you're going from site A to site B, they'll say there's not enough daylight hours to complete this trip. Kelly made a fantastic video about this last year, which I'll link at the end of the video. He kind of walks through what a whole reservation would look like through Parks Canada. He explains it a lot better than I can, and he just walks you through how to make this happen. Staying at Wolverine can help you avoid this daylight hours issue because you don't have to book the site. All right, moving on to Section D.
Section D. Okay. With Section D, I talked to a few people, and it was kind of like the first time you really felt like you were like in the rugged GBT. So next slide. So I loved Section D. You start in Field, you end in Saskatchewan Crossing. It's only about 106 kilometers, so relatively a shorter section. Your gains, 3,522 meters. And now there's a few alternates. You got Kwatnock, Amiskwi, Collie Creek. I found with Section D, if you didn't do the Kwatnock alternate, you hated it. If you did the Kwatnock alternate, you loved it. So just something to consider. I did the alternate. I loved that alternate. It was fabulous. You do have to get Iceline bookings. So either Yoho Lake or Little Yoho Valley, but definitely an amazing alternate to do. As for the Glacier Lake alternate at the end of Section D, not feasible, would not recommend at all. I think the river crossing is just way too deep, and so just I wouldn't even attempt that or look at it. For Section D, an URSAC or a bear bin is required. It's a terrible section to attempt a bear hang, so yeah, just URSAC or a bear bin. Don't even attempt to do bear hangs there. You're either in very high alpine or you're kind of on the river. So the trees are just dense and not tall. They don't hold bear hangs. And we did have wildfires last year, if you were following. So in 2024, we had a bunch of wildfires. There was no closures, but I think we do have some updates on what the trail is like.
Yeah, so it was briefly closed just north of the Kwetnock alternate. It's called the Blaeberry Valley. And there was a substantial fire through that valley. These are pictures taken in the fall of this 2024. And these pictures are right where the Great Divide Trail is. There's a trail building trip going in June to kind of assess and resurface the trail. Fortunately, a lot of the area that was burned, there wasn't necessarily infrastructure like bridges that burned or, any major markers. So kind of the plan this summer is, rake it out, shovel it out so there's now a clear established path. And some info I got was that assuming the trail building does not go according to plan, or we can't accomplish what we hope to, the best option right now is once you hit kilometer 587, and this is up to date with the Far Out app, take the road until the road intersects with the Collie Creek alternate. The Collie Creek alternate is also kind of the new, it's the best way to go. We hope to eventually make this the official route. Right now it's an alternate, but this is kind of the best route currently available on the GBT. Does anybody have any specific questions on the fire? We're also going to talk about the Jasper fire and Mount Robson in the next couple slides. I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions specific to the Section D fire.
Yes and no, that's okay.
All right.
All right. So bookings on section D. If you're gonna do the Kiwatanok alternate, you're gonna have to go in January 29th. That's is the small bridge on Collie Creek still up? Do you know, Austin?
It's unknown. We haven't been in
Yeah.
there, but where the fire was, it doesn't look like we expect the bridge to still be there. One of the bigger threats would be a really big snowmelt and getting washed out. But as of right now, our best information is that it is still there.
Okay. But yeah, so anyways, yeah, if you're gonna do Yoho Lake or Little Yoho Valley, January 29th. I think Yoho Lake isn't too hard to book, but Little Yoho Valley is getting really, really popular, so that's a hard one to book. Also, random camping permit is needed. You have to call the office though. Like they won't let you do that online. And so if you're camping in the Amisqui Valley, so if you do, if you're going up through the original GDT or once you come down from the Quatnot Gap and rejoin the GDT, if you're going to camp anywhere along the valley there, you'll need a random camping permit. And then another random camping permit you'll need from Banff National Parks, because after you go over House Pass, you'll most likely be camping on the floodplains of the House River. And you need that's in Banff National Park again, so you'll need a random camping and you have to call the office for the random camping permits. And your resupply will be at Saskatchewan Crossing. They do offer to hold your resupply boxes if you're staying at the resort. It's a free service. Otherwise, they will charge you. And their store is crazy expensive. If you've been to Saskatchewan Crossing, everything's outrageously priced. So we really suggest doing a resupply box here, mailing it there. And this is also a really, really good place to change your shoes out. I changed my shoes out here. It was great. And then I only needed 2 pairs of shoes the entire GDT.
Same. I saw somebody asked about Amisqui Ridge. I haven't personally hiked it. Meg, did you hike Amisqui Ridge?
No, because they just did that new trail in 2023. So we stayed on that.
Okay. I heard it's
Yeah.
great. The weather wasn't lining up for me to do it, but I've heard great things about it. All right. And I saw on Facebook somebody asked about staying. So there was a time when if you don't want to stay at Saskatchewan Crossing, there's a spot. So if you kind of walk towards the start of Section E, which is at Owen Creek, if you keep going and just cross the park line, you are able to kind of sleep. It's not the best spot. Like you're close to a highway. It's not a very busy highway, but you could definitely hear it through the trees. There is a flat spot that you are able to sleep there. There's no services. Again, leave no trace principles. We don't want to ruin this opportunity for other people. But last I heard, and the campsites have been updated just this month, that option is available. All right. Moving on to Section E. So Section E starts in Saskatchewan Crossing and goes to Jasper, Alberta. It's one of the longer sections, 214 kilometers, about 7,900 meters gain. And regarding alternates, there's really only one. It's the 6-pass alternate. The 6-pass alternate has been closed to overnight hiking for 2 or 3 years now. Some people did accomplish it in a day. They are very, very fit. Both of the people that I heard they're ultra runners, like not uncommon for them to do 50, 60K in a day in the Rockies with a pack. I did 6-pass alternate. I consider myself a pretty fit guy, and I did not see a feasible way of me doing 6-pass alternate in a day. It's all off trail. You're going through kind of lumpy alpine meadows. It's protected for kind of grizzly and caribou habitat. So, unless you're the kind of person that's looking at like a fast itinerary, I don't think 6-pass alternate is a feasible option. If you're looking for kind of a shorter section on the GDT, this first section on Section E is unbelievably beautiful. It's really good taste of kind of higher alpine Canadian Rockies. if you kind of start section E at Owen Creek, which is the main trailhead, and then go to Nigel Pass, that's about 55K of hiking. It's pretty easy to get a hitch point from one end to the other. Alternatively, you can go about 50 more K to another spot called Waterfall and come out there. And again, the access back to the highway in both of these situations is less than 20K. So it's a pretty good spot to do 50 to 100K with very few or no reservations on the whole section. For permits in Section E, you'll need an Alberta Public Lands Camping Pass if you plan to camp at Pinto Lake. That first image I showed of Section E is Pinto Lake. Personally, I think it's the best lake to swim in on the whole GDT, and it's one of the nicer campsites. You can have like 15 tents there. You know, it's very uncommon for people to be there that aren't GDT hikers, and it's one of the only spots that you might be able to camp with like many other GDT hikers. You know, a lot of the campgrounds, they're going to either have, like in Section C, have people doing weekend hikes for, you know, day hikes. But once you're kind of in this section of E, it's mostly just GDT hikers, and it can be pretty nice to hang out with some other people that are kind of doing the same thing. In the northern section of Section E you're in Jasper National Park, and there's kind of two trails that people do as kind of popular weekend hikes that you'll be going through. The first one's called the Brazo Loop, which includes the campgrounds of Boulder Creek, 4 Point, and Waterfall, Pabokton, Jonas Cutoff, and Avalanche is just past it. These reservations will go relatively quickly. What's nice is Jasper National Park reservations don't go live until January 29th, so you can get kind of Section C figured out and then figure out where you're going to be in your dates for Section E. And then after that, you're going to be going through the Wolverine Valley. There's looking at kind of older trip reports. They're going to be out of date. We've done a lot of maintenance in the Wolverine Valley. So before, people said it was an absolute nightmare, but we've worked with Jasper National Park quite closely, and they let us do a lot of good work in the Wolverine Valley. So I heard the trail is substantially better now. And so if you're looking at really old trip reports, don't get scared. They're probably out of date. Trail maintenance has been done. Then you'll end up on the Skyline Trail. So that's kind of Little Shovel, Snowball, Takara, Signal, those campgrounds. This is the most popular hike in Jasper National Park for overnight hikes, but it is quite easy. The grading of the trail is quite easy. It's probably one of the easier kind of 50K segments on the trail that's not on like a mix of like old logging roads and kind of single track. You can really cruise through here. I think you can get a little brave with your itinerary on the Skyline Trail, just due to how well it's maintained, and it's graded quite easily. Regarding resupply in Jasper, there's a lot of places to resupply. There's post office there. There's lots of gear shops. There's lots of grocery stores. One thing is, if you're mailing a box, make sure to check the days and hours of the post office. It's not open every day. If you want to stay somewhere kind of cheap, the Jasper Downtown Hostel is a good option. Book it very early. As with everything in Jasper, I'm going to talk about the Jasper Wildfire on the next slide, but after you get your reservations for Section E, I would book your Jasper stuff that same day, just due to the fire impact and just Jasper in general. There's a good gear shop, Wild Mountain. They also offer GDT hikers a discount. They have kind of, more of the mainstream hiking stuff, but a lot of more ultralight options too. The Dead Dog, I'm actually not sure if it's still there. I don't know about every business that's still there, but I'm pretty sure the Dead Dog's still there. And there's also an all-you-can-eat Indian buffet, which is excellent if you're trying to maybe do your biggest day yet on the GDT coming into town. Somebody on Facebook asked about access on the Skyline Trail. So kind of once you finish the Skyline Trail, you're going to end up kind of more in the town area of Jasper. And so this will involve walking it's very flat, but you're walking through lakes and kind of just meandering before you end up in town. I know some people that they had done a pretty big day, and they just called a cab to the trailhead. It was not that much money, and they just did that. And then I don't know if they just skipped those kilometers flat through town or if they just went back on their zero and just did, it's just like, it's probably 8-ish K. So, enough that if you're tired, you might not want to do it. You want to go get drinks and all you can eat Indian buffet. Um, but it's very easy once you're at the trailhead to get to town. So many people probably heard there was a huge wildfire in Jasper last year. Tons of homes and businesses were lost. Also, a huge impact to kind of the topography of Jasper with so many trees burning. Another thing that we are discovering is that even though not every aspect of the trail was burned, fortunately in the Skyline Trail area and the GDT, not that much of the trail experienced wildfire. However, winds were well over 100 miles an hour. And so trees were snapping everywhere. And so I've heard that on the Skyline Trail, even though not much of it's been burned, a ton of trees fell down. And so the bigger task from Parks Canada this winter and going into the hiking season is going to be making sure all these logs are cleared. So there's going to be deadfall kind of all over the place. But knowing Jasper, it's going to be in fantastic shape if they open it. But just to give people an idea on, Jasper has been heavily affected. Please be patient with kind of things that might be happening in Jasper. Some of the hostels and hotels burned down. So this is another reason that once you get your reservations, book your accommodation right away because just the capacity of what the town can hold is definitely limited. From what I've heard, people are definitely welcome to go to Jasper. I mean, given that they've experienced such a huge disaster, tourism money is welcome. They want to make sure that's such a big source of income for the town, and so visitors are definitely welcome. Just please be patient that a lot of infrastructure has burned up, and they're trying to get back to where they can. Did anybody have any other questions about the Jasper fire or anything on Section E?
How busy is Whistler's campsite?
Whistler's burned. So
Yeah.
I thought about including an image of that, but I thought a town would give people there weren't as many kind of higher pictures. I don't know if Whistler's is going to be open. Tons of trees fell and most of it burned. But Whistler's is huge. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of sites. There is a shuttle to town, which is nice. It's a cheaper way to stay in Jasper because it's quite expensive everywhere. But I don't have an update on Whistler's at this point. Any other questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. All right. Jumping into sections F and G.
All right. FNG. When I came back from doing the entire GDT, all I talked about was the last 12 days on FNG. Because every day was an adventure. There was just no easy hiking. Every day something happened. So FNG, you start in, we kind of do them together just because there really isn't, the separation of them is the Smoky River. You're kind of in the middle of nowhere above Robson Provincial Park. So really you just kind of either you go all the way through or you go off trail to get a resupply. So you start in Jasper, you end up at Kakwa Lake Provincial Park. Distance is 267 kilometers, elevation gain 7,250 meters. There are some, I didn't do any alternates when I did FNG because we were just kind of done at that point and trying to finish. But these, I've heard these alternates, some of them are just absolutely spectacular. Did you do any alternates, Austin?
No, the Perseverance high route I've heard is nice. It's hard, like you're taking a hard
Mm-hmm.
section and making it harder, but I didn't do any alternates at all. It's already
Yeah.
a big section.
Yeah, my husband, when he did FNG back in 2017, he did do the Surprise Providence alternate. And he said it was like you're up on a ridge all day. It's absolutely beautiful. But the day we went to go do it, because we were thinking of doing it, it had snowed the day before. So we were decided it was too slippery to try and get up on that ridge. All right, next slide. So for bookings, you're going to need bookings in Jasper National Park if you're planning on staying at Minnow Lake, Adolphus Wolverine, so kind of along North Boundary Trail. Usually you can't book them online, but maybe this year you can because we have a date of January 29th. Usually it doesn't let you, so hopefully that means North Boundary is going to be kind of back up and running.
I
Berg
know.
Lake, oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say January 29th is the soonest you can call the office. Like you said, I've
Okay,
always had to book these over the phone with the backcountry
yeah.
office, but you can book them starting January 29th.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So you will have to call. Berg Lake is, they haven't given us a date, but Berg Lake will be opening this year, which is very exciting. It offers another kind of either get off trail, get on trail, or resupply. It sounds like the visitor center is going to offer to hold resupply boxes at the Mount Robson Visitor Center. You are going to need also a random camping permit in the Blaeberry Valley. So that's where you'll probably be camping the first night on F, and you'll have to call the visitor center for that. Alberta public lands, you'll need a camping pass if you're going to be camping in Wilmore Wilderness. We just ended up hiking through Wilmore. We didn't end up staying. So I don't think, yeah, if you're going to get an Alberta public lands anyways to hike section B and parts of D, so you'll have that. And then Mount Robson Provincial Park. That's off trail, but that's if you're going to do a resupply, you're going to probably be booking within that park. And it's a BC campground, so it'll follow the 4 months in advance once we learn when they're going to open.
Mhm.
And the nice thing about FNG now is that Walker Creek Forest Road is in better shape than it has been. So most likely, if you're going to get picked up, your ride, if you have a lovely person who's willing to drive that, can actually come straight to the Bastille Creek head. We had to hike out for a day to have my parents meet us. And it looks like there's a campsite at the 37-kilometer mark on Walker Creek now, if you are going to planning on hiking out that way. Because we also have an eastern exit to end up outside of Grand Prairie, I believe. If you
Yet,
want.
just to give people a bit of an understanding, when you finish the GDT, you're about 75-ish K from a road. And so either there's an option to get a shuttle out, which we have on a couple slides, or you have to find a way out. Hitching's not really an option. It's a dead end Forest Service road that kind of ends at the trailhead. And so some people hike it out, and you can really slap down the kilometers here, but yeah, the campsite at 37 kilometers, kind of your best bet. And then the next day you can hit the highway.
Yeah, I did meet two people who we left later because we had a ride planned, but they left super early to hike out on Walker, and there was quadders that gave them a hitch into McBride. So they managed to hitch out the same day. We didn't find that campground. I don't know if it was there in 2023. We found a flat spot on the side of the road, managed to pitch our tent. It worked. All right. So, yeah, our next slide is just about Mount Robson Provincial Park. It is opening this year, the Berg Lake Trail. One thing about Berg Lake Trail, if you are planning on doing this alternate, it is very popular. I think one of the most popular sites in BC provincial park system, and especially that it's been closed for ages. It's gonna reopen. It's a beautiful campground, great facilities, just like they have the red cedar outhouses. They always have wardens around, but it might be hard to book, especially if you
Mhm.
want to stay right at the lake.
Yeah, yeah. I find like so people historically have resupplied there. You're not really saving much time or making it easier by resupplying here because you're only a few days into section F at this point, and then you're basically wasting a whole day and about 40 or 50 K to resupply at the visitor center. Um, I think usually the only people that took this kind of alternate or kind of side trail was just to see it. It's really beautiful, but it's definitely not the most convenient or easy option. But if maybe you're coming from far away and you really want to hike the Berg Lake Trail, you'll be right there. If you want to add in a couple days to your itinerary, it's certainly an option.
Mhm. Another resupply option if you don't, so if we go to the next slide, if you don't want to do, so I know people that did kind of 14 days straight, and then people like me who we did do a resupply at Blueberry Lake. My husband did both. He said doing the resupply was worth it rather than carrying 14 days worth of food. It made it our packs very manageable, especially because every day on FNG is there's always going to be some sort of struggle. You're in like middle of nowhere, you're in this inland rainforest. Sometimes like not a lot of trail crews can get out there all the time. So we did the Blueberry Lake trailhead resupply. So you go off trail. It was about 7 kilometers down, what we called Mud Mountain. So it wasn't like an easy down. It sounded last year like the trail was quite a bit better. And we just camped at the base last time. So we camped, there's like a flat spot where people park their cars. We camped there, picked up our resupply that we mailed off, and it's 129 or $99. And then we just hiked back up. It took us about 3 hours to get back up to trail. And then you're only about 4 days from finishing the trail there. So even though there was this beautiful access road to just leave, we were motivated to get back on and just finish. And it just, it made your packs nice and light for those last two sections. I know they're willing to hike up to Blueberry Lake for, I think it was like $400 back in 2023. So if you don't want to go off trail, you can pay extra money and they will hike your stuff up and throw it, I believe, in like an Ursack or bear hang for you and to go pick up.
Yeah, when I chatted with them, they want to physically meet you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, and that 129 versus 99, that's a non-GDT member and then a GDT member price.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll also shuttle you out from at the end of the trail. They can take you to Prince George, they can take you to the highway or to Jasper. The cost is several $100s, but it's based on full vehicle. So if you can coordinate it with a few people, it's only 100 and something bucks per person. And then I mean, you can save yourself a couple days. Like if you have to get to a flight, you got to get back to job, or you just don't want to walk on a road for a day and a half. It's a good option.
Yeah. Do they go, because in 2023 they didn't go all the way to the trailhead, so you still had to hike out about halfway on the road to get picked up.
Yeah, I haven't heard about this year yet because it's pretty early. Usually they kind of give us a better idea in like kind of May, June. But once they can drive up and check it out, yeah, I don't think it will be all the way, but it's still a big chunk of the way.
And also what people have been doing is if they are off trail or they leave the hike, is they donate their food in the bear. So when we actually ended up adding on an extra day. So when we got down to the resupply, there was boxes of free food. So we were actually able to like add more food to our bags since, we were running low. So that was really nice too. So a nice little kind of pick me up and friendly. I guess the only really trail magic we actually found on the GDT, because there really wasn't much, unlike the PCT or CDT. All right.
I see there were Q&A questions and chat questions. So I just want to make sure I get to all of them.
Okay.
I didn't see the chat ones. Let's see.
Here.
Let's see.
For random camping permits, do you have to call months in advance?
Yeah, I've never heard of them capping it. It's more just, it's a small fee and they just want to know kind of how many people are using this and where people are. One thing can I call months in advance? Yes, for the random camping permits, you can call the backcountry reservations open usually. And it looks very similar to a regular camping booking. It just says like random. It doesn't give you like a specific campsite. One thing also I forgot to mention is last year, when the fire went through Jasper, somebody that's on the GDTA was in Section E, and they were, they had reservations, and they were evacuated with a helicopter because the fire was coming in. And the reason they knew she was there is because she had permits, like she was supposed to. So given kind of the nature of wildfire, I mean, we see California right now, the GDT last year. I mean, it's becoming a phenomenon every single year. Um, Making your bookings and abiding by them, let officials know where you are. And so, like, if you are somewhere where there's a fire surrounding you or they need to get you out, they know where you're going to be. They will fly and they will get you. Can't promise this will happen every single time to every single person, but by them knowing there's 9 people booked at this reservation or booked at this campsite, it gives parks an idea on where people are and when they're going to be there. And I think last year that became very aware when Jackie on the outreach committee was flown out because they saw she had a reservation. They showed up at the campsite and said, it's time to go. What else? There was a few more. You hike out the highway, Dome Creek. Can you get a train back to Jasper? There's the only train I know of is the scenic train, the what's it called? The Rocky.
Rocky Mountaineer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is definitely more of a luxury train. As far as I know, it just goes north to south. I don't know of any trains for people that go east to west. Um, the kind of Highway 16 along Jasper. I mean, it's near Jasper, it's busy, but otherwise it's quite remote between the west side of Prince George and Jasper. Like it's not nearly as busy as, say, Highway 1 or the Icefields Parkway. Um, some people have certainly hitched there. I mean, you're definitely a couple hours. You're like 2 hours from Jasper, 2 to 3 hours from Prince George. I'm trying to see. Meg, do you know where Dome Creek is? I don't remember that off the top of my head.
I don't, but I will quickly add a computer here.
Oh, I didn't know Rocky Mountaineer went to Prince George.
So it's along. Trying to just think in relation to the GDT of where this is. So yeah, it's along Highway 6. Dome Creek's just kind of along the Fraser River, along Highway 16.
Okay.
And it looks like there is a train station there. But I don't know if that train station would necessarily take passengers down to
Yeah, there's big
Jasper.
CN and CP rail line there, but
Yeah, so it kind of follows the Fraser River probably, but I would say I don't know of any, like, other than the Rocky Mountaineer, any passenger trains going through that area.
somebody asked how can you get from Prince George to Vancouver? A flight is probably that's definitely the most common. Greyhound buses are no longer in existence in Canada as of a handful of years ago. Flights would be definitely the easiest option. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other options. Everybody I
Mm-hmm.
know would fly that.
Yeah. Which sections are usually water scarce? Um, in August, I knew some people that did Section A and they struggled. Like they were like the water sources really diminished in August for Section A.
Yeah.
As
Otherwise,
for
there's so much water on the
yeah,
GBT. Like it's rare I'd ever carry more than 2 liters of water.
yeah. It's only we carried 4 liters on the day we did Lakulit in Section A. And
Mhm.
it was hot and yeah, by the time we got to a water source, we were very happy. But other than Section A, yeah, there's water everywhere. And then as for a lot of water in river fords, FNG.
Yeah, I'm
You're
trying to
gonna
think. I don't think you'll ever be above knee deep outside of FNG.
Yeah, FNG, and the only two honestly places in FNG that were awful was the Smoky River and the Chone River.
Hmm.
Those two, Smoky we crossed first thing in the morning, which a lot of people do. You can camp on the floodplains. Cross first thing in the morning. Check the Far Out app because it tells you kind of you don't want to cross where the red line is on Far Out. There, like you kind of do a V shape depending on if where the floods are and like the little islands in the river are. Because if you cross where the red line is, usually it's about at waist deep. And my husband was 5'11" when he crossed one time at like 4 in the morning, and it was still waist deep. And so when we crossed at 6, yeah, it came up to me. But then the Chone Creek, we crossed at like 3, which was a terrible idea. And yeah, so those are the two worst, but you're going to be in and out of rivers in FNG constantly between the Moose River, the Jack Pine River. I think we crossed the Jack Pine 23 times.
Section D, you'll also be in the water a lot, but it's not going to be very deep. Like sometimes just finding out which kind of sandbar to hop on as you're walking through the floodplain. Most of it's going to be like knee to below. And if it's not, you can usually find an option that will be knee deep or below knee deep.
Yeah, the House River wasn't bad at all. You could always find something. And we really weren't in it as much as I thought we would be.
Mhm.
Is there significant sections of FNG with Jasper Wildlife Closure?
Wildlife closure? Which section?
Wildfire for
Wildfire.
FNG.
Oh,
Sorry, I read it wrong.
Yet everything should be open next year. There's no things were closed last summer, but kind of what we've heard from Jasper National Park is that Skyline Trail should be open, and that was really the only section that was closed last year. Other spots of Jasper were closed, but that was just to make sure like nobody's in the backcountry because resources were put to fighting out the fire. Um, on kind of the maps that shows areas that were impacted, not necessarily by fire, but just closed due to there being a fire. But from maybe a month or two ago, we heard from Jasper National Park, and they said every section that the GDT crosses through Jasper National Park should be open. And there's a lot of great information on the Jasper fire on the Jasper National Park website. They have day by day changes, they have maps, they have images. Yeah, they kind of have all the information there, but from a through hiking perspective, it shouldn't impede a through hike at all. And progress on through hiker negotiations. Yeah, we get this all the time. The challenge is it's not up to us. We're not the governing body of the parks. And so we have to approach this by saying, we really want to make sure people can have this. It's also not just one person we have to convince. It's all the superintendents of each park for Parks Canada and Parks Canada at a federal level. It includes BC parks, all the different BC parks. So right now, what we're really trying to do is just really build a collaborative relationship with all these organizations to show, hey, we are really good at building trails. We're really good at maintaining trails. We're educating the public. And, I think through hiker permit, it's going to be years. It's not going to be next summer. It probably won't be the summer after that. We're really trying to build this like kind of legacy of through hiking within Canada. And it's not something that's just going to happen over time.
Yeah. And questions on weather. When it comes to the GDT, be prepared for a lot of rain. You're not necessarily going to get it, but there are years where the weather's just awful and it rains the entire time. If you're doing FNG, always be prepared to be snowed on. And it can get cold at night. We only had it drop below 0 once when I did it in 2023, but it can drop below 0 definitely. It's a wild card in this trail.
Yeah, I'd say speaking to people that I know that have hiked the GDT and many other trails, they say definitely plan for colder than you would on a PCT hike and a CDT hike. But the biggest thing is just precipitation. Everybody will be hiking in, I guarantee you, if you're doing a through hike, you will be hiking in the rain and or snow at least once. And it's not necessarily a Sierra Nevada kind of rain that then dries out. Like it might be wet and then you're wet all day, or you're walking through bushes covered in water. Like rain gear is essential on the GDT. I know one person that started with Frog Togs and they quickly got rid of that and bought a very nice jacket. nice rain gear is going to be your friend on the GDT.
Yeah, we in Section G between Monk Hill and Copper Kettle Campground, my husband on both of his trips got snowed both times on that section. Substantial snow, like it stuck to the mountains, and then all of our stuff froze that night. So we actually lost our filters because we accidentally left them out. So everything froze that night. But we were very fortunate. The next day, the sun did come out, so we did manage to heat up. And then you stay in the cabin the next night usually, which was nice. But yeah, we got snowed on 3 times in 2023. First 2 snowfalls were like fun, and the last snowfall was not fun.
I see any webcams that would be handy for GDT hikers. Oh yeah, perfect. The Marmot Ski Hill one and Sunshine Ski Areas one. Another good option is, let me pull it up. I've posted it on the hikers page, but it's called the Snow Pillows survey data. So what it does is it measures kind of how much snow there is at these weather stations. So this can be good. I will say, I'll put this in the chat so everybody can see it. One thing I will say though is that usually GDT hikers are already fully booked by mid-February. Sorry, I'm just grabbing the second website. And so it doesn't always, I mean, it can help you maybe make a more informed choice on, are we going to try to delay or what are we going to do? But this is why I think choosing your start date is more essential. Forgot to mention this in the beginning, but June 15th would be remarkably early. Somebody this year started last year started around mid-June, and they were not having kind of the best time to start. The average start date is July 1st. Usually if you start July 1st, you're pretty smooth sailing. You will definitely be hiking in snow at some points, but it's going to be quite passable. But in general, it's not necessarily the kind of hike where you can just decide, oh, I'm going to start 6 weeks earlier, because a lot of it's going to be impassable levels of snow. You're going to be in high avalanche terrain. It's going to be pretty dangerous, wide open, convex slopes, like not a place you want to be hiking and walking slow. I saw, yeah, perfect. Jim has a question. I'm going to answer that in just a second. Douglas says, for booking Jasper National Park, is it still advisable to log in 60 minutes prior to reservations opening to get in the queue? Yeah, 2 things on that. In the next couple days, I would go and make your Parks Canada online account. I'm also going to get, I have a link. Kelly does a great walkthrough on making a whole reservation. I would go ahead and make your whole account now. So then when you do log in to make these permits on permit day, you're not also creating an account. It's just one less speed bump that you don't have to deal with. 60 minutes seems like a lot. I'd hop on 10 or 15 minutes before they go live. You are assigned a random spot in the queue. So if you arrive 4 hours early or 2 minutes early, you get an equal chance. Once it kind of hits reservation time, you're assigned a random spot.
Yeah, they only close the website down 30 minutes prior. So if you're on before that 30 minutes prior, you're not going to get thrown into the queue. So you're going to just be refreshing the page. And so just come on after 30 minutes and you'll have the queuing page.
Gotcha. Somebody asked, what's the spot for bookings? It's called Schnurp. So this has been kind of a saving grace for hikers in the past couple of years.
I'll add it into the chat.
I just got you. I got it there.
Oh, you got it? Perfect.
Yep. Yeah, so what you can do here is you can put in the campground that you're looking for and the date, and then this website, it's free, will scan it refreshes, however many dozens or hundreds or thousands of times a day. As soon as a campsite goes live, it'll let you know right away and say, hey, July 17th, Flow Lake's available. Click here if you want to go book it. So a lot of people have found that, they didn't expect they could go on a thru hike. Things changed. They found out in May they could go. And I know people that have been successful to get a whole thru hike just based on these last minute reservations. They definitely did not have the itinerary that they were hoping for, but it is possible. So if you kind of go into permit day and you say, oh, shoot, I really wanted to get one site so I don't have this colossal day, definitely hang out with Schnurp. it's not really going to start popping up reservations until maybe April or May when people start canceling trips. But it does give you options later on to adjust your itinerary if you have to.
Yeah, and just on the Q&A, Austin, in Dustin Link's book, there's a Cal Topo QR codes for the maps. Do you know how they're used?
Oh, yeah, that was sounds like a bit of miscommunication between a few parties. The CalTopo QR codes are not linked to maps. I don't know if this was an error with the publisher, but somebody asked me this a couple weeks ago, and I reached out to Dustin, and he said that that's not kind of the best option. Also related to this is, all the info is available for free on the GDT site, and you can import it to whatever app you want. So yeah, a lot of people, I'm not sure what the plan was with the QR codes, but they don't work. It's not just you.
And then what's the latest GDT start date where you wouldn't run into significant weather issues? That's a hard one.
Yeah, depends on how fast you're hiking. If you're hiking into September, like if you're hiking through all of August and into September, I can almost promise you're going to get snow. It might not be a foot, but it will be, you will probably get snowfall. Um, the window's short, like usually July and August are your sweet spots. Outside of that, you're either going to have a lot of lingering snow or you're getting to a point where it's starting to get quite cold at night. I mean, September can be beautiful, but it can also include snow and quite cold temperatures and rain. So I would say if you're doing a full through hike and you're at an average pace, August 1st would be very late, I'd say. Anytime in July is usually the sweet spot.
Yeah. Are most reservations done per tent or per person? They're done per tent pad usually. Yeah, so you can book a tent pad, but there's only, I think, a max of 4 people per tent pad. And then we didn't really talk about kind of the Avalanche, Mary Va, Mary Schaefer bookings and how they work.
Oh yeah. So this is on the campsites spreadsheet on the website, but yeah, those ones you have to call to make them. So the most northern sections of Section E before Skyline. So yeah, when you're in the Moline Valley, those you have to call to reserve
Oh,
historically.
is it call now?
That's what you had to do.
Oh,
What year
okay.
was that? Could you book yours online in 2023?
We hopped on someone else's because it was like you booked one group, but it didn't matter how many people you had with you, but you had like it's one group booking.
I'll try, you know what? I'll see if Jasper can give us an answer for that.
Someone says they're booked online now.
They are now? Okay. Either
So
way,
that's
at those sites, there's, many tent pads, but they've only allowed one party to book the site because they want to, decrease the frequency of people passing through the Moline Valley. So they say, one group per day can be at these sites, even though there is spots for many tents. But I will post it on the hikers Facebook page if this has changed for the upcoming year. But this is historically how it's been, is just one party per spot. Does the association want trail reports from hikers after we've reached areas? The most helpful thing is comments on the Far Out app. We look at that many times per week to kind of see where people are struggling, how things are going. And it kind of helps us because we can just look and see reports from everybody and it's in a handy spot. So yeah, if you want to help, that's the best spot to help.
we just heads up everyone on Park Social that they're not enabling the queue. The system on all days this year.
What's that?
Just in the chat, it looks like they announced this week. Reservation days, no queuing system. Oh, certain days they're not doing a queuing system. It looks like. So, okay. Oh, I see. So, like West Coast Trail, they're not doing a queuing system anymore. That's not us. Kootenai National Park, Yoho, except okay, that's not backcountry. That's front country. And Waterton Lake, it looks like they're not doing a queuing system.
Hmm. Oh, that was just on Friday that they released this.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's Waterton's back country or front country. The 22nd.
Yeah, Waterton backcountry historically has not been the hardest spot to get reservations because we're
Oh, oh, did we lose Austin? So Waterton, kind of what Austin was saying, although we just lost him. Waterton isn't really been an issue for the backcountry system. But yeah, so I don't think you'll have too much problems, even if there isn't a queuing system. Usually, like I knew people that went in and it was kind of the day, like few days before they actually started the hike, that they needed to get the permits for Twin or Lone Lake.
I saw somebody asked about micro spikes. I know people that have brought them. I don't think they're ever really needed. There's in section A, there's a spot where you might be traveling across snow, but it's relatively short. You don't really need micro spikes.
Yeah, I didn't need any either. Could you talk a bit about what happens when you cannot when you cannot fulfill your campsite itinerary due to weather, injury, or unforeseen?
Yeah, I mean, please cancel your site. Whether, I mean, like with the exception of the park being closed, like Parks Canada won't refund you if it's raining or snowing. If there's a fire that closes the park, they will refund you. It might take a long time to get the money back, but if the park is closed and you have a reservation, you will get refunded. Otherwise, I know a strategy some people do is, they build in a couple extra zeros here and there just in case something happens, then they have a bit more, flexibility in that time. But yeah, otherwise, please cancel them so other people can use them. If you have more to that question, please let me know.
And yes, sorry, Saskatchewan Crossing does allow you to mail your packages there. We have been the information on what you need on your package. If you have a booking, though, it's free. So if you're staying at the resort, they'll hold it for free. If you're not, they'll charge you a fee. But yes, you can still send your stuff there.
What options do I have to get from Calgary to Waterton? There is, now that I'm not in presentation mode, I have access to the rest of my computer much easier. If on the GDT site under the Go Hiking, if you go to through hiking and then you go to access, there are multiple options. It's the first item on the list is getting from Calgary to Waterton. There's the airport shuttle, which goes between that and the Prince of Wales Hotel in Waterton. There's a Calgary Waterton shuttle by somebody named Chantel. She gives a GDT member discount, which again pays for itself right away. Those are the two main ones. Some other people you can take more like a taxi from Pincher Creek area, but in general, people are either taking the airport shuttle or the shuttle owned by Chantel. Allison asked, what does queuing mean? So when you log on to these kind of Parks Canada and sometimes BC Parks reservation systems, you get there and it's just kind of like buying sometimes some tickets for like big events where you're there and there's going to be tens of thousands of people waiting to book campsites across the whole entire park for the whole entire summer. And so you're kind of there in this waiting room. And then right when it hits, it's been 8 a.m. Mountain Time for these parks historically. Right at 8 a.m., the screen refreshes and you're placed in a random spot in the line. And so, you might get spot 400, you might get spot 40,000. And as people are making these reservations and exiting, you're going up and up in the queue. So the screenshot they were saying is that for some of those parks, there was no queuing system, which I assume means everybody all at once. The parks I saw looked like they were more for front country, and they, with the exception of Waterton, weren't necessarily on the GDT. The Yoho, I think, was the front country date, because all those dates were before the release dates of for GDT campgrounds, except for Waterton. And there's only 1 or 2 sites you need through Waterton. Are trailheads generally safe? I haven't heard of anybody getting their cars broken into on the GDT. I mean, certainly make informed decisions. Don't leave fancy things on right out in the open. But I have not heard of any GDT hikers or section hikers having stuff broken into. Have you, Meg?
No, I haven't heard anything. Does the association want trail reports from hikers after we've reached areas with cell phone signals? A really awesome thing to do, and I did this, is update the Far Out app if you're using Far Out. You can make comments. So after I would get cell service, I'd always make comments on every kind of place where I felt a comment was needed, just to alert other hikers on the GDT.
Mm-hmm. Oh, paint pots, that's a bummer. They had their car broken into. I'd say it's uncommon though. It's not like, I know there's some other trailheads in other areas where 5 or 6 cars are getting broken into all the time, but it's certainly not common. Somebody asked about rides from Coleman to Waterton. On that access page I just linked into the chat there, from Coleman to Waterton, I mean, a taxi is the only one I know of. Chantel, who runs the shuttle from Calgary to Waterton, she lives in the Coleman area. So I'm sure you could organize something with her to get to Waterton. Oh, actually, I didn't even read the whole thing. Yes, she will do it. It's $140, and that's for the whole vehicle. So if you can fill it, it'll be cheaper per person.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which trailheads would have porcupine. I know, like, if you did the Blueberry Trailhead, it would, or the
Mhm.
Steel Trailhead. A lot of them are on the highways, though, so I don't think there's a huge porcupine issue. But if you're worried about porcupines, bring chicken wire, wrap your cars.
Yeah, a few things I'm going to link here. If you are not aware, this website kind of has everything you could need for planning a through hike. We have a walkthrough on the permits, detailed instructions on how to use the reservation system through Parks Canada. Also, I will get a video. Kelly wasn't available to help us this year, but there's a bullet point. I'll get rid of the bullet point. This YouTube link, might have to copy and paste it. It's not embedding the same way. Kelly does a full walkthrough on creating what a reservation would look like. Basically, we have the same thing in text on the website, but if you wanted to kind of see how it's done, that's a good option.
Yeah, and then here's just our web page for all the national park bookings.
Perfect.
Just trailhead access and if you want to read it, what you should know. Is there a shoulder widest safe area to walk Jasper to Colonel Creek Trail section? I got dropped off. I didn't do that 20K roadblock.
Same.
But I know people that did. I think they felt it was fine. The shoulder wasn't too bad, but definitely fast traffic going through there.
Yeah, and the alternate just north of the highway, the Marjorie Lake, it's in rough shape. I don't know anybody that's done it actually. It's pretty bushy. But yeah, so either people walk the highway, it's about 25-ish K, I think, to where you actually hit trail. Or what I found a lot of people did is, because you're just literally walking on the side of the highway, they just took a cab right from town and they just had them drop them off once you kind of got to the actual trailhead to just save you from some highway walking.
Yeah, I know a guy that did. He said it was pretty miserable for a highway walk.
Yeah, there's lots of trucking on that highway, so it's definitely not as scenic as some other roadblocks you might have been used to.
And Section F is a rough start to begin with before you get to the Myatt Valley, I found. So to not have to do the roadwalk was really.
All right. See if anybody else has another question. I'm just going to post the member link here.
All right.
Do you need to call
Maybe.
Six Passes to let them know? No, because it's just a day hike. You don't need to let them know. Historically, if you were camping there, you'd need to call to get a permit. But because it's just a day hike now, you don't need to call them. All right, we'll give everybody a couple more minutes if they have any questions. Otherwise, if you've kind of built out an itinerary, you have any other burning questions? We'll have, can you say anything about the GDR North Occoquan? Yeah, we're going to have a webinar on this in February. Um, Everything I've heard is very hard, is not very fun. So
Yeah.
um, we're going to have several people that have hiked it come and kind of talk about how it compares to other spots on the trail, what it was like, how they would have changed their trip. Um, but overall, I've heard it's exceptionally difficult coming from people that were doing the GDT very quickly. Yeah, that'll probably be into February. All right. If nobody has anything else, oh, I see on the GBT link for us, it says 1 tent per tent pad. We will have two one-person tents. Yeah, I've never heard of that being a problem. Depending on the tent, sometimes it can be hard to fit it if you have like a lot of guidelines. But if you have two very small tents, it's not usually an issue. I've put two one-person tents on there before. Yeah, the dates for gear and other webinars be posted soon. Yeah, I'm hoping we can have them all figured out in the next week. They'll be out in on all the spots you saw here. Facebook, Instagram, events page of the website. I'll put it in the chat for the section and through hikers page. And yeah, also every year we've done a webinar, we've recorded all of them and put them on YouTube. If you want to get more perspectives on planning a trip or kind of whatever, I'm just going to post our YouTube channel below. And then we have, dozens of videos there on previous year's webinars. Just got to find the channel real quick. There we go. There you go. Cool. Yeah. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to either email me, austin.hager@greatdividetrail.com. It's on the website, or just toss questions into the hikers Facebook page, and I'm sure you'll get lots of feedback there.
Yeah.
Cool. I saw there was a couple questions. When we reserve campsites, do we also need to enter an access point? Yes, that is explained in the video really well. It's kind of it makes for a long meeting to have this and reservation explanation. But yeah, access point is kind of the trailhead, and then your campsite is what campsite you're reaching from the access point. In that video, it's described, and then also in the the explanation on our website. I'll send both links again right here. So here is the link to the text right up on how to do it. I'm going to toss it in the chat. And then for the video, there's a video explained right here. And yeah, I don't know why the YouTube link isn't going through, but there we go. Similar webinar to last year. And then at the end, you'll see Kelly presenting just on how to make a reservation, and he talks about Parks Canada, BC Parks, and Alberta Parks. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. And any questions, let them fly. And I'll see everybody at the next webinar.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Bye.